A starving wolf stood in front of a man trapped in the snowy forest. But what it did next left everyone in shock. The wind howled through the towering pines, their snow-laden branches groaning under the weight of the blizzard. The forest, once a sanctuary of tranquility, had transformed into a menacing labyrinth of shadows and swirling snow. Visibility was reduced to mere feet, the world a blinding white chaos. This was Montana in the depths of winter, a land of unforgiving beauty, where nature reigned supreme. Jake, a seasoned survivalist, found himself at the mercy of this unforgiving wilderness. He had ventured deep into the mountains, seeking solitude, a chance to reconnect with the primal rhythms of nature. He was an experienced outdoorsman, confident in his skills, his knowledge of the land, his ability to navigate the challenges of the wild. But the blizzard had struck swiftly, unexpectedly, catching him off guard. He had been tracking a lone wolf, a magnificent creature with a coat of pristine white, its movements a mesmerizing dance of power and grace. He had followed the wolf for hours, his camera his constant companion, his passion for capturing the essence of the wild fueling his pursuit. Then the storm hit, the wind howling, the snow swirling, the world transforming into a blinding white chaos. Jake, disoriented and blinded by the snow, had stumbled and fallen, his leg twisting beneath him. A sharp pain shot through his body, and he knew, with a sinking feeling, that he was injured, alone, and vulnerable. He tried to get up, to push through the pain, but his leg wouldn't cooperate. He collapsed back onto the snow, his body shivering uncontrollably, the cold seeping into his bones. He knew he had to find shelter, to get out of the wind, to protect himself from the elements. But the blizzard raged on, relentless, unforgiving, making any movement a monumental effort. As darkness began to close in, Jake's hope dwindled. He huddled beneath a towering pine, its snow-laden branches offering meager protection from the wind. He thought about his life, his love for the wilderness, his passion for photography, his family, his friends. He wondered if he would ever see them again. Suddenly, through the swirling snow, he saw a pair of eyes, luminous yellow orbs peering at him from the blinding white. It was the wolf, the magnificent white wolf he had been tracking. It stood a few feet away, its gaze unwavering, its presence both intimidating and strangely compelling. Jake's heart pounded in his chest, a mix of fear and fascination gripping him. He had encountered wolves before, but never this close, never this alone, never this vulnerable. He knew that wolves were predators, that they were driven by hunger, that they could be dangerous. But this wolf, this magnificent creature, seemed different. It stood there, motionless, its eyes fixed on Jake, its gaze filled with a strange intensity. Jake felt a connection to the wolf, a sense of understanding that transcended the boundaries of species. He had spent years observing wolves in their natural habitat, learning their language, their social dynamics, their intricate relationship with the wilderness. He felt a kinship with these creatures, a deep respect for their wildness, their untamed spirit. The wolf, driven by hunger and desperation, took a step closer, its muscles tense, its body poised for action. Jake braced himself, his instincts screaming at him to defend himself, to fight for his life. But the wolf hesitated, its eyes flickering with a strange emotion, a conflict between its primal instincts and an unexpected empathy. This hesitation, this moment of indecision, was what shocked those who witnessed it, those who had always believed that wolves were nothing more than ferocious predators. But this wolf, this magnificent creature, was different. It was a creature of both instinct and empathy, a creature capable of both violence and compassion. And in this moment of hesitation, it revealed a depth of complexity, a richness of spirit, that challenged the very foundations of human understanding. The white wolf stood frozen, its luminous eyes locked onto Jake's. The blizzard raged around them, a symphony of howling wind and swirling snow, but within the small clearing where they faced each other, an eerie stillness prevailed. The wolf's breath rose in ragged clouds, its ribs visible beneath its thick fur, a testament to the harshness of the winter, the scarcity of prey. Hunger gnawed at its belly, a primal urge that drove its every instinct. Yet it hesitated. Jake, his body racked with pain, his mind clouded with fear, watched the wolf with a strange detachment. He had always known the risks of venturing into the wilderness, the unpredictable nature of the wild, the ever-present danger of predators. He had accepted those risks, embraced the challenges, respected the delicate balance between humans and animals. He saw the hunger in the wolf's eyes, the desperation that fueled its every move. He knew that he was vulnerable, injured, an easy target. But he also sensed something else in the wolf's gaze, a flicker of hesitation, a hint of something beyond the primal instinct to kill. The wolf took a step closer, its muscles coiled, its body poised to strike. Jake braced himself, his heart pounding in his chest, his breath catching in his throat. He knew that he was no match for the wolf's strength, its speed, its ferocity. But the wolf stopped again, its eyes searching Jake's, its gaze penetrating his defenses. It saw the fear in Jake's eyes, the pain in his movements, the vulnerability that lay beneath his rugged exterior. It saw the connection to nature, the respect for the wild, the kinship that bound them together in this harsh landscape. The wolf's hesitation deepened, his primal instincts battling with an unexpected empathy. It had never encountered a human like this, a human who was not just prey, but a kindred spirit, a fellow traveler on the journey of survival. The wolf lowered its head slightly, its ears flattening against its skull, its tail twitching nervously. It whined softly, a low, mournful sound that echoed through the silent forest. It was a sound of confusion, of conflict, of an internal struggle that defied its very nature. Jake, sensing the wolf's hesitation, felt a surge of hope. He knew that he was not dealing with a mindless predator, but a creature of complex emotions, a being capable of empathy, of understanding. He reached out his hand slowly, his fingers trembling, his palm open in a gesture of peace, an offering of trust. The wolf watched his hand, its eyes flickering with uncertainty. It took a step back, its body tensing, its instincts urging it to retreat, to protect itself. But then, it stopped, its gaze returning to Jake's, its hesitation deepening. The wolf's internal struggle was palpable, its primal instincts warring with its newfound empathy. It was a battle between nature and nurture, between instinct and intelligence, between the wolf it was and the wolf it could be. And in that moment of hesitation, of conflict, of unexpected connection, the wolf did something that shocked everyone who witnessed it, something that challenged the very foundations of human understanding about the nature of wild animals. Instead of lunging for the vulnerable man, the wolf did something truly unexpected. It sat back on its haunches, its luminous yellow eyes still locked with Jake's, but the tension in its body eased. It let out a soft whine, not the menacing growl one might expect, but a sound that held a hint of questioning, pleading. Jake, his heart still pounding, felt a wave of relief wash over him. He wasn't sure what had caused this shift in the wolf's demeanor, but he wasn't about to question it. He kept his hand outstretched, his palm open, a silent offering of peace. The wolf, as if drawn by an invisible force, slowly approached Jake. It sniffed his outstretched hand cautiously, its warm breath ghosting over Jake's frozen fingers. Then, to Jake's astonishment, the wolf gently licked his hand, its rough tongue a surprising contrast to the gentleness of the gesture. A wave of warmth spread through Jake, a feeling that had nothing to do with the freezing temperature. It was a connection, a spark of understanding between man and beast, a bridge built on mutual vulnerability and respect. He slowly withdrew his hand, afraid to break the spell, to shatter the fragile trust that had formed between them. The wolf whined again, a soft, almost pleading sound. It nudged Jake's hand with its nose, urging him to continue the contact. Jake tentatively reached out again, this time stroking the wolf's head. The fur was thick and soft beneath his touch. The wolf leaned into the touch, closing its eyes, a low rumble of contentment vibrating in its chest. This was not the ferocious predator Jake had expected. This was a creature of complex emotions. Driven by hunger, yes, but also capable of something more, something akin to empathy, to understanding. They stayed like that for a long time, the man and the wolf, huddled together in the heart of the blizzard, a silent testament to the unexpected connections that can form in the most unlikely circumstances. The storm raged around them, but within their small circle of shared space, a fragile peace prevailed. Jake knew that this moment couldn't last, that the wolf's hunger would eventually outweigh its newfound empathy. But for now, he cherished the connection, the shared vulnerability, the unexpected bridge of understanding that had formed between them. As the blizzard raged on, Jake's situation grew increasingly dire. The cold was seeping into his bones, his injured leg throbbing with pain. He knew that he couldn't stay exposed to the elements for much longer. He needed shelter, warmth, a chance to rest and recover. But he was trapped. His leg was useless, and the snow was too deep to navigate. He was at the mercy of the storm, his fate hanging in the balance. The wolf, his unlikely companion, seemed to sense Jake's desperation. It paced restlessly around him, whining softly, its eyes filled with concern. It nudged Jake with its nose, as if urging him to move, to seek shelter. Jake looked at the wolf, his heart filled with gratitude. He knew that the wolf was trying to help him, but he didn't know how. He was too injured to walk, too weak to even crawl. Then, an idea sparked in his mind, a desperate gamble, a last-ditch effort to survive. He looked at the wolf, his eyes pleading, his voice hoarse. "Help me," he whispered. "Lead me to shelter." The wolf tilted its head, its eyes searching Jake's, as if trying to understand his words, his intentions. Jake repeated his plea, his voice stronger this time, his desperation fueling his words. "Please," he begged. "I need your help." The wolf seemed to understand. It let out a soft whine, a sound of agreement, of acceptance. It approached Jake cautiously, its eyes filled with a strange determination. It lowered its head and gently grasped Jake's coat in its teeth, careful not to injure him. Jake winced as the wolf's teeth grazed his skin, but he held still, trusting the creature, his life depending on it. The wolf started to pull, gently at first, then with increasing strength. Jake, his body weak and aching, allowed himself to be dragged through the snow, his hope rekindled, his spirit lifted by the wolf's unexpected assistance. They moved slowly, the wolf navigating the treacherous terrain, Jake's body trailing behind, his injured leg bumping against the snow. The journey was arduous, painful, but Jake endured, his determination fueled by the wolf's unwavering support. They traveled for what seemed like an eternity, the blizzard raging around them, the world a blinding white chaos. But Jake held on, his trust in the wolf growing stronger with each passing moment. Finally, they reached their destination, a small cave hidden behind a curtain of snow-laden branches. The wolf gently pulled Jake inside, releasing his coat, his eyes filled with concern. He nudged Jake gently, urging him to rest, to seek shelter from the storm. Jake crawled deeper into the cave, his body shivering uncontrollably, his teeth chattering. The cave was small, barely large enough for him and the wolf, but it offered protection from the wind and the snow, a temporary respite from the harshness of the blizzard. He looked at the wolf, his eyes filled with gratitude. He had saved his life, brought him to safety, offered him shelter. He didn't know why the wolf had done it, but he was eternally grateful. The wolf settled down beside him, his body radiating warmth, his presence a comfort in the darkness. He watched over Jake, his eyes filled with a strange intelligence, a curious awareness. Jake felt a connection to the wolf, a sense of understanding that transcended the boundaries of species. He closed his eyes, exhausted but grateful, his mind filled with the image of the wolf, his unexpected savior, his guardian in the wilderness. He drifted off to sleep, the warmth of the wolf's body beside him, the sound of his gentle breathing lulling him into a peaceful slumber. The cave, though small and damp, offered a refuge from the relentless storm. Jake, huddled beneath his thick winter gear, felt the warmth radiating from the wolf curled beside him. He drifted in and out of sleep, his dreams a confusing mix of pain, fear, and the surprising comfort of the wolf's presence. When he finally awoke, the blizzard had subsided. A faint light filtered through the cave entrance, revealing the wolf watching him with those intense yellow eyes. Jake felt a surge of gratitude for this creature, this predator, who had defied its nature to help him. He had always respected the wild, understood the power and unpredictability of nature, but this experience had deepened his appreciation for the complex creatures that inhabited it. He carefully examined his injured leg. It was badly swollen, and the pain was intense. He knew he wouldn't be able to walk on it, not for a while. He was stranded, miles from civilization, with a broken leg and a wolf as his only companion. A wave of despair threatened to engulf him, but he pushed it back. He had survived this long. He wouldn't give up now. The wolf, sensing his distress, nudged him gently with his nose, a low whine rumbling in his chest. It was a sound of comfort, of reassurance. Jake reached out and stroked the wolf's fur, a silent communication passing between them. They spent the next few days huddled together in the cave, sharing the limited space, the meager rations Jake had managed to salvage from his backpack. The wolf, surprisingly, didn't try to steal the food. It seemed content to wait for Jake to offer him scraps, accepting them with a gentle gratitude that was both humbling and awe-inspiring. Jake, despite the pain and the uncertainty of his situation, found a strange peace in the wolf's company. He spent his days talking to the wolf, sharing stories of his life, his family, his love for the wilderness. He felt a connection to this creature, a bond that transcended the boundaries of species. He observed the wolf closely, fascinated by its behavior. It was clearly hungry, its ribs visible beneath its thick fur, yet it never showed any aggression towards Jake. It seemed content to simply be near him, to share the warmth of the cave, to offer a silent companionship that was both unexpected and deeply comforting. Jake realized that this wolf was not just a wild animal. It was a complex being, capable of empathy, of understanding, of something akin to compassion. This realization challenged his preconceived notions about the nature of predators, about the relationship between humans and animals. It opened his eyes to a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of all living things, the delicate balance that existed between the wild and the civilized world. Days blurred into a monotonous cycle of pain, hunger, and dwindling hope. Jake's rations were almost gone, and his injured leg showed no signs of improvement. The wolf, too, was growing weaker, its ribs more prominent, its movements sluggish. One morning, Jake awoke to find the wolf gone. Panic surged through him. Had the wolf abandoned him? Was he left to die alone in this frozen wilderness? He felt a wave of despair wash over him, the loneliness crushing, the fear suffocating. He spent the day huddled in the cave, his thoughts a whirlwind of fear and regret. He had been foolish to venture so deep into the wilderness alone, to risk his life for the sake of a photograph. He had underestimated the power of nature, the unpredictability of the wild. As darkness descended, his hope dwindled. He shivered uncontrollably, his body weakened by hunger and cold. He knew that he couldn't survive another night exposed to the elements. He closed his eyes, tears freezing on his cheeks, his mind filled with images of his family, his friends, the life he was about to lose. Suddenly, he heard a sound, a faint rustling at the cave entrance. He opened his eyes, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. He saw the wolf, its silhouette outlined against the fading light, its jaws clamped around a large, limp form. The wolf dragged its prey into the cave, dropping it at Jake's feet. It was a deer, a young buck, its body still warm, its eyes glazed over in death. Jake stared at the deer, his mind reeling, his emotions a confusing mix of shock, gratitude, and revulsion. The wolf had brought him food, a gift of survival, a testament to their unlikely bond. It had risked its own life to hunt for him, to provide for him, to save him. Jake looked at the wolf, his eyes filled with tears. He reached out and stroked its fur, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you," he whispered. "You saved my life." The wolf nudged his hand gently with its nose, its eyes filled with a deep understanding. It had defied its nature, its instincts, its hunger to help him. It had shown him a compassion, a loyalty that transcended the boundaries of species. Jake knew that he couldn't waste this gift, this sacrifice. He had to survive, to honor the wolf's loyalty, to repay its kindness. He gathered his remaining strength, his determination renewed, his spirit lifted by the wolf's unwavering support. He began to skin the deer, his hands clumsy, his movements labored. The wolf watched him patiently, its presence a comfort, the silence a source of strength. Jake ate the raw meat, his stomach churning, his body revolting against the unfamiliar taste. But he forced himself to swallow, to nourish his weakened body, to fuel his will to survive. He shared the meat with the wolf, offering him the choicest cuts, a gesture of gratitude, a recognition of their shared struggle, their unlikely partnership. The wolf accepted the offering with a gentle grace, its eyes filled with a deep appreciation. They ate together, the man and the wolf, their bond strengthened by the shared meal, their connection deepened by the act of survival. They were two creatures, bound by fate, united by a common struggle, their lives intertwined in the heart of the wilderness. The shared meal, a raw and primal act of survival, forged a deeper connection between Jake and the wolf. Jake, his strength slowly returning, felt a renewed sense of hope. He was no longer just fighting for his own survival. He was fighting for the wolf, for their unlikely partnership, for the bond that had formed between them in the heart of the wilderness. He spent the next few days tending to his injured leg, using his knowledge of wilderness first aid to fashion a makeshift splint from branches and strips of cloth torn from his shirt. The wolf watched him patiently, its presence a constant comfort, its eyes filled with a quiet understanding. The weather began to clear, the blizzard giving way to a crisp, sunny day. Jake ventured outside the cave, leaning heavily on a sturdy branch he had found. The wolf stayed close, its body a reassuring presence beside him. Jake took in the beauty of the winter landscape, the snow-covered trees glistening in the sunlight, the crisp air filling his lungs, the silence of the wilderness a soothing balm to his weary soul. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for this moment, for the chance to experience the wonder of nature, the resilience of life. He looked at the wolf, his eyes filled with appreciation. "Thank you," he whispered. "You saved me." The wolf tilted its head, its eyes searching Jake's, as if understanding his words, his emotions. It nudged his hand gently with its nose, a silent gesture of affection, a reaffirmation of their bond. Jake knew that he couldn't stay in the cave forever. He had to find a way to get back to civilization, to seek medical attention for his leg, to return to his family and friends. But he also knew that he couldn't leave the wolf behind. He had formed a connection with this creature, a bond that he couldn't break. He decided to try to make his way back to the trailhead, hoping to find help along the way. He knew it would be a difficult journey, his leg still injured, his body weakened by hunger and exposure. But he was determined to survive, to honor the wolf's loyalty, to repay its kindness. He started to walk, slowly at first, his steps faltering, his body aching. The wolf stayed close, its presence a constant source of strength, its eyes guiding him through the treacherous terrain. They walked for hours, the sun slowly sinking towards the horizon, casting long shadows across the snow-covered landscape. Jake's strength was fading, his vision blurring, his consciousness wavering. He stumbled and fell, his injured leg twisting beneath him. A cry of pain escaped his lips, a desperate plea for help. The wolf stopped, its gaze fixed on Jake. It nudged him gently with its nose, its eyes filled with concern. It seemed to understand his pain, his exhaustion, his desperation. It lowered its head and gently grasped Jake's coat in its teeth, careful not to injure him. Jake winced as the wolf's teeth grazed his skin, but he held still, trusting the creature, his life depending on it. The wolf started to pull, gently at first, then with increasing strength. Jake, his body weak and aching, allowed himself to be dragged through the snow. His hope rekindled, his spirit lifted by the wolf's unwavering support. They moved slowly, the wolf navigating the treacherous terrain, Jake's body trailing behind, his injured leg bumping against the snow. The journey was arduous, painful, but Jake endured, his determination fueled by the wolf's loyalty, his heart filled with gratitude for this unlikely friendship that had blossomed in the heart of the wilderness. The journey was arduous, a test of endurance and resilience. Jake, weakened by his injury and the ordeal he had endured, pushed his body to its limits, driven by a desperate desire to survive, to return to the world he had almost lost. The wolf, his loyal companion, remained by his side, a constant source of strength and encouragement. They navigated the treacherous terrain, the wolf leading the way, his keen senses guiding them through the snow-covered forest. Jake followed, his injured leg dragging behind him, his body aching with every step. But he refused to give up, his determination fueled by the wolf's unwavering support. They encountered obstacles along the way, fallen trees, icy patches, deep snowdrifts. But they persevered, the wolf helping Jake to overcome each challenge, his strength complementing Jake's weakened state. As they journeyed, Jake's appreciation for the wolf deepened. He marveled at the creature's intelligence, its resourcefulness, its unwavering loyalty. He had always respected the wild, understood the power and unpredictability of nature, but this experience had given him a new perspective, a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of all living things. He realized that the wolf was not just a wild animal. It was a complex being, capable of empathy, of compassion, of forming a bond with a human. This realization challenged his preconceived notions about the nature of predators, about the relationship between humans and animals. It opened his eyes to a world of possibilities, a world where humans and animals could coexist, where respect and understanding could bridge the gap between the wild and the civilized world. As they neared the trailhead, Jake's hope soared. He knew that he was close to safety, to civilization, to the world he had almost lost. But he also felt a pang of sadness, a sense of loss at the thought of leaving the wolf behind. He had formed a connection with this creature, a bond that he couldn't bear to break. He looked at the wolf, his eyes filled with gratitude and affection. "Thank you," he whispered. "You saved my life." The wolf tilted its head, its eyes searching Jake's, as if understanding his words, his emotions. It nudged his hand gently with its nose, a silent gesture of farewell, a reaffirmation of their bond. Jake knew that he couldn't keep the wolf with him, that it belonged in the wild, in the freedom of the wilderness. But he also knew that he would never forget this experience, that he would carry the memory of the wolf, his savior, his friend, forever in his heart. The trailhead, once a distant beacon of hope, now loomed before Jake, a gateway to civilization, to safety, to the world he had almost lost. He emerged from the forest, his body weary, his leg throbbing, but his spirit soaring with gratitude and a newfound appreciation for life. He saw a group of hikers gathered near the trailhead, their faces etched with concern as they noticed his disheveled appearance and his injured leg. They rushed to his aid, offering assistance, their voices filled with questions and concern. Jake recounted his ordeal, his voice hoarse but steady, his words painting a vivid picture of his encounter with the blizzard, his struggle for survival, his unlikely friendship with the wolf. The hikers listened intently, their faces a mixture of disbelief and admiration. They helped Jake to a nearby cabin, offering him warmth, food, and medical attention. A rescue team was dispatched, and soon, Jake found himself being airlifted to a hospital, his body battered but his spirit unbroken. As the helicopter soared over the wilderness, Jake looked back at the receding landscape, his eyes searching for a glimpse of the wolf, his savior, his friend. He saw him, standing on a distant ridge, his silhouette outlined against the setting sun. his white coat gleaming in the fading light. The wolf howled, a long, mournful sound that echoed through the canyons. A farewell, a testament to their enduring bond. Jake felt a tear roll down his cheek, a single tear of gratitude, of sadness, of acceptance. He knew that he would never forget this experience, that he would carry the memory of the wolf, his guardian in the wild, forever in his heart. He had learned a profound lesson about the interconnectedness of all living things, the power of compassion, the resilience of the human spirit. He had faced death, had stared into the abyss, and had been pulled back by the unexpected kindness of a wild creature. He had emerged from the wilderness transformed, his perspective broadened, his heart filled with gratitude and a newfound appreciation for life. Jake's recovery was slow but steady. He spent weeks in the hospital, undergoing surgery on his leg, receiving treatment for hypothermia and exhaustion. He was surrounded by family and friends, their love and support a constant source of comfort and encouragement. But even as his physical wounds healed, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed within him. He had faced death, had stared into the abyss, and had been pulled back by the unexpected kindness of a wild creature. He had emerged from the wilderness transformed, his perspective broadened, his heart filled with gratitude and a newfound appreciation for life. He realized that he couldn't return to his old life, to the routine and predictability of his urban existence. He had been changed by his experience, awakened to a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of all living things, the delicate balance between humans and nature. He decided to pursue a new path, one that would allow him to share his experience, to inspire others to connect with the wild, to appreciate the beauty and complexity of the natural world. He became a wilderness guide, leading groups of people on expeditions into the mountains, sharing his knowledge of survival skills, his passion for nature, his respect for the creatures that inhabited the wild. He often spoke about his encounter with the wolf, his voice filled with emotion, his eyes shining with gratitude. He described the wolf's intelligence, its compassion, its unwavering loyalty. He challenged the common perception of wolves as ferocious predators, highlighting their capacity for empathy, their connection to the human spirit. He led his groups to the area where he had been rescued, the place where he had formed a bond with the wolf. He would stand on the ridge overlooking the valley, his voice echoing through the canyons, sharing his story, his transformation, his love for the wild. And sometimes, as if drawn by an invisible force, the wolf would appear, standing on a distant ridge, his silhouette outlined against the setting sun, his white coat gleaming in the fading light. He would howl, a long, mournful sound that echoed through the canyons, a greeting, a farewell, a testament to their enduring bond. Jake would smile, his heart filled with gratitude, his soul at peace. He had found his place in the world, his purpose in sharing his experience, his connection to the wild, his love for the creatures that shared this planet. He had found his harmony, his balance, his peace.